Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Sunday, July 16th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next few days, we will continue to have impacts to fire potential across the Great Basin. Today, a mix of wet and dry lightning will continue over eastern and northeast Nevada, up into northern Utah and southern Idaho, with wetter thunderstorms continuing further south and east across Utah. Also, winds will be increasing, especially Monday and Tuesday, over the northern half of Nevada up into Idaho, with gusts between 25 and 35 miles per hour and very low relative humidity. This wind will certainly have an impact on ongoing incidents and also may stir up some holdovers from lightning we've seen recently. These gusty winds may also continue into the mid to late week period, and we will be monitoring that for additional areas of concern. Over the last 24 hours, our lightning detection network was down, but the image on the right encompasses much of where we saw the lightning, mainly across Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and into northeast Nevada. These thunderstorms were generally wet across Idaho and the eastern and southern half of Utah, with rainfall amounts between about 1/10 and 1/4 of an inch. Further west, we had much lighter amounts of rainfall across Nevada. We still continued with light to moderate initial attack across the Great Basin and new large fires emerging, especially across Nevada up into Idaho. Over the last 1 to 4 weeks, we've continued to see precipitation over the last 7 days, mainly focused over the southern and eastern half of the Great Basin associated with the monsoon, which has been in some areas above normal for this time of year. Very dry conditions continue over much of the northern and western side of the Great Basin. Also over the last month, generally below normal precipitation exists in all areas. How this has affected our current fuel conditions: ERCs have generally dropped across the southern portion of the Great Basin as that monsoon moisture remains in place, but have been increasing over the northern and western side of the area. Still, in much of the northern and eastern half of the Great Basin, we have ERCs above the 70th or 80th percentile, and some of these areas over northern Utah and eastern Nevada are still near records for the time of year, and ERCs continue to rise over the further northern and western areas. 10-hour fuel moisture is still very low across much of the western half of the Great Basin. We still have a fuels and fire behavior advisory out in the areas shaded in red, mainly for the significant grass loading this year from the precipitation we've seen during the winter and the spring. We're seeing grass loading 200 to 300% above normal for this time of year, especially across northern Nevada up into southern Idaho, and this is significantly contributing to our extreme fire behavior. The satellite loop from this morning still shows high pressure dominating across the southern half of the Great Basin, with low pressure moving into the northwest coast. Underneath this area of high pressure is again where we continue to see lightning, and already do have some isolated lightning across northern Nevada this morning. However, as this low moves in and another wave drops south, we will see winds increase over the northern and western side of the Great Basin, especially as we move into Monday and Tuesday. This will be bringing drier conditions, so definitely lower amounts of lightning over the western half of the Great Basin, but that increase in winds will be the most significant increase to fire potential. Looking at our significant fire potential for today, as we continue to have moisture in place, we are continuing to highlight those mix of wet and dry thunderstorms over eastern Idaho into northern Utah and northeast Nevada, with continued wetter thunderstorms further south and east. Much drier conditions will continue across the western part of Idaho into Nevada. Today, relative humidity will generally be between about 10 and 15% across much of the southern half of the Great Basin, and you can see the image on the right is where we're expecting those thunderstorms today. Wetter as you move further east, and drier storms as you move further west into Nevada. By Monday, low pressure continues to drop south off the west coast, which will account for our increase in winds across Nevada into Idaho, and you can see this very dry signature moving into the western side of Nevada. So very low relative humidity with likely poor overnight recoveries are expected along with this increase in wind, and you can see where we're expecting those increases to fire potential. Again, not only on our existing incidents, but also possibly stirring up any holdovers. Relative humidity with that very dry air moving in will drop down into the low to mid single digits, again, really increasing fire behavior. Wind gusts, you can see the image on the right, again, most concerning over western and northern Nevada, but still could see some of these breezy winds up into parts of Idaho and also eastern Nevada as well. On Tuesday, that dry air remains in place and pushes a little bit further eastward, so we will see decreasing lightning across Idaho into Nevada and western Utah, but still those breezy winds with the strongest winds expected mainly along the Sierra front into far western Nevada. On Tuesday, you can see the relative humidity still in the single digits over much of Nevada and now into southwest Idaho, and the image on the right showing those wind gusts. You can see generally wind gusts most significant along the Sierra front, but still over parts of eastern Nevada and parts of Idaho, we could see some gusts between about 25 and 30 miles per hour. And you can see also that dryness now extends much further east into western Utah. Then over the next 3 days, the main precipitation again will be focused into Utah, also early in the period over parts of the central Idaho mountains, which vary dry conditions further west. As we move into the middle of the week, that monsoon moisture really starts to return again to much of Utah and to parts of eastern Nevada, so you will see lightning increase again towards Wednesday. However, again, generally low fire potential is expected across Utah with the amount of deep moisture that will be returning. Continued dry air remains in place, however, across Idaho into northern and western Nevada. On Thursday, that dry air remains in place, and we also may continue to see some breezy winds over parts of the western and northern side of the basin. We have not issued any high risk, but we still may be looking at those areas over the next couple of days, and we may be adding some high risk for winds and low relative humidity to parts of Idaho or even northern Nevada. Thunderstorms continue over the eastern half of the Great Basin on Thursday, and into Friday, some of that dry air moves a little bit further east into northern Utah, still keeping thunderstorm activity over much of the rest of Utah into far southern Nevada. On Saturday, very similar trend continues, dry air in the west and north, and moist air with thunderstorms in the south and east. Looking at the overall amount of precipitation over the next 7 days, this does include what we already saw in the 3-day period, but you can see a great increase as that moisture returns from mid to late week across Utah into the Arizona Strip. So again, continued wetting rains in those areas, and even back into eastern Nevada, we'll see some of that moisture return. The 8 to 14-day outlook, which takes us into the end of July, shows continued warm temperatures, but that above normal precipitation signature continues over Utah into even parts of southern and central Nevada as we get later in the month. So hopefully some of that moisture will start to move north and west where it is really needed. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us. Thanks for listening.